Yo, what up? It's your boy Tom, and it's Wednesday, my dudes. You know what that means. It's time for a deck profile. Today, we'll be taking a look at Pendulum Magician. Now, this is not the FTK variant. This is specifically just for scythe locking your opponent here. For the non-pendulum monsters, 2 copies of Tuning Magician. I like that ratio. One makes it a little bit more painful when you do draw it, but really it's just the number of copies you play of this card is sort of just about your mindset, you know? If you play 3 copies of it, you know, you want to see it. You're normal summoning it just to get into Halka Fibrex at that point. If you play 1 of it, you're treating it like a brick. If you're playing it at 2, that makes no sense whatsoever. So I feel that that is the optimal number here. 3 Max C, of course. And you know him, you hate him, Artifact Scythe. What can I say? Nothing. Anyway, 1 copy of Dragon Pit Magician. Now, there is no Odd Eyes package in the extra deck, meaning that playing 7s isn't really that necessary, so no Xianqi for this list. Dragon Pit is only here for Floodgates. 3 copies of Performapal Pendulum Sorcerer. This is basically the best card in the deck. Wisdom Eye Magician. This is basically the best card in the deck. 1 Luster Pendulum. This doesn't come up too much, especially since Double Iris is at 1. But using this destruction effect can help in some cases. Mostly this is just a summon off of Ignister to get Ignister's shuffle effect for free. 3 copies of Performapal Skullcrobat Joker. Now this is the best card in the deck. 2 copies of Harmonizing Magician. Unfortunately, in Master Duel, this is limited to 2 as opposed to 3 in the TCG. Otherwise, of course, we would be playing 3 because this is the best card in the deck here. 1 copy of Double Iris. Now this is limited to 1 as opposed to 3 in the TCG. Otherwise, we would be playing 3 because this is the best card in the deck. 1 copy of Purple Poison Magician. You only really need 1, but you can't really play 0. This card's a little too important. It comes up a lot in, you know, corner cases, grind games, popping floodgates, playing defensively, grind game, just all that kind of stuff. But it's plenty accessible, so you don't really need to play more. 3 Curtain Raiser. This is just 1/2 of Electromite. Performapal Celestial Magician. Now this has very advantageous naming, as it is both a magician, but also a Performapal. So it is very accessible. It is a great high scale with a great scale effect, great monster effect. I see a lot of people playing this at 1. I usually bump it up to 2 or 3 copies. A lot of people have been sleeping on this, and I don't know why. It is fantastic. It is super flexible. And also, a lot of people play Black Fang in this spot, and I don't understand it. Black Fang is hella sus. Especially because a lot of the lists that I see running around are not heavy on Xyz monsters, and there are very few and far between ways that a Pendulum monster is going to find its way into the graveyard. Black Fang is pointless if you're not playing heavy on the Xyz monsters here, if you want my honest opinion. So screw Black Fang, play this instead, unless if you are playing a different variant. 3 Oath Dragon Magician, best low scale in the game. Just fantastic. It's the best card in the deck. 1 Astrograph Sorcerer, it's the best card in the deck. 3 Pendulum Call. Now this does conflict with Wisdom Eye Magician, and also a little bit with Double Iris Magician, but it goes great with Time Pendulum Graph, and it fixes your hand, and a lot of times your opponent's going to have Ash anyway, so if you draw Wisdom Eye and Pendulum Call, well, one of them's going to resolve, one isn't, and that would be the exact same scenario if your opponent didn't Ash you, so, you know, who really cares? 1, 2, 3. Duelist Alliance, never play less than 3 of this card. This is the best card in the deck, hands down. 1 Star Pendulum Graph, 1 Time Pendulum Graph, and 2 Called by the Grave. That's going to round out the main deck. Let's talk about the extra deck now. Only 1 copy of Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom. If you're playing 2, then, well, you're probably playing the FTK variant. You still want to play 1 of this, though, even if you're not planning on FTKing your opponent, because this is functionally a second copy of the rest of your extra deck. And it has Piercing for Crooked Cook. 1 TG Wonder Magician. This is, of course, just for Scythe setup. 1 Ignister, Prominence, the Blasting Draco Slayer. This card's fantastic. If you're not playing it, you're cringe. It outs things that can't be destroyed or targeted. It's non-destruction, non-targeting removal. Absolutely fantastic. And also, in a pinch, you can use this to trigger destruction effects. 1 Supreme King Dragon Clearwing. This is just a board wipe. So these are both just level 8 synchros that are semi-generic. You can just go into them to help clear your opponent's board, either going second or on turn 3. And depending on what kind of stuff your opponent has on their board, one of these will likely be hitting the field. 1 Borreload Savage Dragon, easy to get to, easy negation, although that is not the focus of the first turn setup. Most of the time you just make this on turn 3. Or if you're going second, you would try to make this to try to protect your plays. 1 Ruddy Rose Dragon. So, Baron de Fleur is not in Master Duel yet, unfortunately. So there is an empty slot for a level 10 synchro that you make off of TG Wonder Magician after Scythe locking your opponent, as this is a level 5 and as is Artifact Scythe. Some people play Leo, and I'm just not convinced. This is a little more useful than that. Now, we're not playing the real Black Rose Dragon, so that effect is just completely out of the question, but this can banish all cards from the graveyard. You don't really care about the graveyard that much. Only thing that it's going to really make a difference in is if you still have a Tuning Magician in the graveyard, or your spell cards for Celine's spell counter count, or maybe Link Monsters for access code, but other than that, your graveyard really doesn't matter, and Eldritch is a very popular deck, and if they have activated the effect of one of their Eldlichers, or if it is not the end phase yet and they still have Golden Land cards in their graveyard, or if they even have Lord, this can shut down their engine completely and give them a huge lapse in their card advantage and just help you take over the game. Only 2 Xyz monsters, 1 Time Star Magician, it's fantastic, and 1 Plan B. This is for when you get hit with Max C. Artemis, you know, this doesn't do a whole lot, but it is important because if you have this card in your extra deck, you can Pendulum Summon a single Harmonizing Magician, nothing else, and make the entirety of the Scythe Lock setup just off of Pendulum Summoning that 1 monster. So this goes a long way into turning Tuning Magician into a fantastic extender. So if you're on low resources or if your opponent is throwing interruptions at you left and right, this can help you make sure that you set up a board as opposed to just falling flat in the face of, you know, getting hit by Ash Blossom, Imperm, and all that. 1 Electromite, it's limited to 1. 1 Halqifibrax, you know what this is for. 1 Dagda, you know what that's for. 1 Celine, this is primarily just to make access code, or Appaloosa, which are the last 2 cards of the extra deck here. So that's going to round out the list. Let's go ahead and jump into a game here. Alright, so hopping into the game here. we will be going first, and it looks like our hand's pretty good here. Pendulum Call and Wisdom Eye. We'll use Wisdom Eye. First, activate Duelist Alliance to get... Never mind. I guess we'll be using Pendulum Call. Since Duelist Alliance is negated, I cannot get into the star graph, so Pendulum Call, discarding the other Wisdom Eye, since we won't be resolving that anyway. Grab a Harmonizing Magician and a low scale. Activate Oath Dragon in the low scale here. Now, we could make Scythe Lock simply just off of Harmonizing Magician, but I will summon the Purple Poison as well to go just a little bit deeper. So, gonna take a short detour here just to make Time Star Magician, and that will allow me to use its search effect, and I can get a Perform Pal Skullcrobat Joker, and I haven't normal summoned yet. So I'll go ahead and do that now and get a Pendulum Sorcerer for the next turn here. Now I'll go ahead and continue where we left off here, going into Crystron Halqifibrax with 2 monsters, activating its effect, summoning the Tuning Magician. Into Artemis, of course. Then after that, Turning Magician effect, it will summon itself from the graveyard, banish itself when it leaves the field, and it'll swap 400 life points for some reason. After that, make Artifact Dagda. And that's really it. All I need to do is trigger Dagda, which I can easily do with Oath Dragon's effect here. And I will set the Scythe directly from the deck here. Oath Dragon will resolve, adding the Harmonizing Magician back to my hand. Proceed to end phase, pass turn. Alright, draw phase, standby phase, main, here we go. Normal summon Alistair. Nice. I'll go ahead and banish Halqifibrax to summon a TG Wonder Magician here. So that's going to resolve, and in a new chain link, Wonder Magician will be able to destroy a spell or trap, and my opponent is going to attempt to play around it here. They have a quick play spell, El Shadal Fusion, so they can summon from the extra deck prior to me getting the lock online here. They will send Dragon and Wendy to the graveyard to make App Cologne here. Unfortunately, they did not do this in the correct chain link. I'm not sure if they were even able to get App Cologne's summon effect to negate a important monster. The dragon will attempt to pop Wisdom Line, but it is under the protection of Pendulum Call, and then here in Chainlink 4, Wendy will summon Hell Shadal Void in face-down defense position. Dragon's effect will fizzle, App Cologne will negate Dagda for some reason, and then Scythe is summoned, and then its effect activates, and then I can just go ahead and Wonder Magician it away. I may have been able to use this to dodge the App Cologne had they waited one more Chainlink to actually summon it. And then I'll just go into Ruddy Rose here. The lock is online now. Go ahead and get those Shadals out of the graveyard. You know, nobody wants those there. They are no longer able to resolve Invocation now, so they're just going to attack over Dagda in the battle phase and pass turn to me. I don't feel like dealing with floating effects or flip effects today, so I'm just going to try to clear their board prior to the battle phase. And looks like it should be pretty easy to do that here. Go ahead and go into a Pendulum Summon. Summoning Wisdom Eye, Pendulum Sorcerer, and Harmonizing Magician. Harmonizing Magician can summon one from deck. Pendulum Sorcerer will pop both of my scales to get 2 Performer Pals to hand. That will be Joker and Celestial Magician. Alright. Harmonizing Magician, summon a second Celestial Magician from the deck, and then the Double Iris effect activates, getting Star Pendulum Graph. Activate that for later. First, link summoning into Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. The game plan. That will trigger Star Pendulum Graph, and that will also trigger the game plan. Go ahead and get a Skullcrobat Joker to the extra deck. Doesn't really matter here. Get a Harmonizing Magician to hand. Now I scale this Joker just to pop it with Electromite to add the Double Iris back to hand, and now I can get a draw off of that, and I can trigger Astrograph Sorcerer. So, Astrograph Sorcerer will summon itself, and I believe it does have a legal search target here. Yeah, Oath Dragon Magician. And then the game plan will add a... we'll draw a card. Unfortunately, I draw into Luster here, Would have preferred to keep that into the deck, but it doesn't really matter. I'll summon Selene just to clear away the Pendulum Sorcerer because it is not a magician, and Harmonizing Magician has restrictions with what materials can be used with it. So I'll summon a Magician and make Ignister. Then I'll scale the double Iris again, using Ignister to pop it, put the Apkaloon back into the deck. Double Iris will add the trap card to my hand, but we probably won't need to use it here. I'll scale up again, and after that, use Oath Dragon to perform Pulse Celestial Magician back to my hand. Now I can make a access code talker. And since I resolved Celestial Magician's effect with a Synchro Monster on board, they won't be able to activate Void's effect in the graveyard, and there's nothing they can do after the access code talker hits the board. And they quit before battle phase. Anyway, if you enjoyed this deck profile and this replay, go ahead and drop a like. Pendulum Magician is fantastic. Gets you to Plat 1 incredibly easy. This deck is a house, and it can go second as well. If you want to see that, go ahead and let me know. Leave your thoughts down in the comments, and subscribe for future content. See you next week.